You know that feeling, right? You're staring at a report, it's just a sea of numbers, and you're thinking, what on earth am I even looking at? Yeah, we've all been there. Well, today, we're going to flip that script. We're going to dive into how to turn that confusing mess of data into something clear, something you can actually use to make smart decisions.
And listen, calling it a superpower, that's not even an exaggeration. I mean, think about it. We are drowning in data these days. So if you can be the person who cuts through all that noise and present information clearly, well, that's a real game changer. This quote from Time Tackle just hits the nail on the head.
So that leads to the big obvious question, right? If this is so critical, why do so many business reports just fail? You know the ones I'm talking about. They're confusing, they're overwhelming, and honestly, they're kind of boring. They completely miss the mark on the one thing they're supposed to do: give you insight. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We're breaking it down into 4 parts. We'll start with the foundation. That's all about purpose and audience. Then we'll get into the blueprint, story, and structure. Next up are the tools for clarity and integrity. And we'll wrap up with the payoff, which is all about action and trust.
All right, first things first, the foundation. You know, the best reports, the most effective visuals, they start way before you open a spreadsheet or pick a chart. They start with 2 really simple ideas: what's your purpose and who's your audience?
And this is such a great way to think about it. You've got 2 mindsets here. On one side, you have the data dump. We've all seen it. It's just throwing every single number at the wall and hoping something sticks. But on the other side, you have the decision driver. This is totally different. It starts with a purpose, and it's built from the ground up for the person who's actually going to use it.
So, how do you get into that stronger mindset? It's actually pretty simple. You just have to ask yourself a few key questions before you even think about starting. Seriously, just ask, why am I even making this? Who is this for? What problem does it solve for them? And, this is the big one, what are they going to do with this info? Nailing these down forces you to figure out your why, and that is absolutely crucial.
Okay, so you know your purpose and you know your audience. Awesome. Now you need a blueprint. And that brings us to our second section, story and structure. This is where we stop thinking about data as just a list of facts and start seeing it as a story.
And I want you to really let that sink in for a second. The single biggest mistake most people make is treating a report like it's just a checklist of data points.
But it's not. It's a guided story. You're the narrator. It's your job to take your audience by the hand and lead them from a messy, complicated starting point to a clear, powerful conclusion. And that's really the heart of what we call data storytelling. And let's be clear, this isn't about making up fairy tales with your data. No. It's about taking all those individual factual insights and weaving them together into a narrative that just makes sense. You're creating a journey, a guided path that takes your audience from huh to aha. All right, now for the really fun part. Let's talk about the tools of the trade. In this section, we're getting tactical. We're going to cover how to pick the right visuals and, maybe even more importantly, how to design them so they're both clear and honest.
Look, your first big choice is picking the right chart. And this isn't about what looks cool or fancy, it's about what works. You gotta match the chart to the job you're trying to do. So if you're showing a trend over time, a line chart is your go-to. If you're comparing different categories, a bar chart is your best friend. And if you're trying to see if 2 things are related, a scatter plot is what you need.
But here's the thing, a word of warning. Picking the right chart type is only half the battle, because a poorly designed chart can actually do more harm than good. It can confuse people, or even worse, it can actively mislead them. Okay, just look at this thing. I mean, come on. We've all seen a chart like this, right? It's got that cheesy 3D effect, the colors are all over the place, but the real crime here, and you gotta look closely, is the y-axis. See how it starts at 50 instead of 0? That's a classic trick that makes the differences between those bars look way, way bigger than they actually are.
So let's just call it what it is. This chart isn't just poorly designed or ugly. It's lying. Seriously. Because the picture it's painting doesn't match the reality of the numbers, it's flat out misleading. Now this is how you do it. See the difference? We got rid of the 3D nonsense, the axis starts at 0 where it should, and look at the color. It's used so smartly, gray for the background info, and one pop of color to draw your eye right to the main point. And the title. The title isn't just regional performance, it tells you the story. Region B outperforms by 25%. Boom. Done.
So let's just quickly recap those key principles. First, curate. Don't just dump information. Your goal is to remove all the visual clutter and maximize what the experts call the data-ink ratio. Basically, make every pixel count. Next, use color with a purpose. A great trick is to start in grayscale and add just one color to highlight what's important. Always, always, always start bar charts at 0. And finally, write a title that actually tells you the main finding.
Okay, we've got our foundation, our blueprint, and our tools. So that brings us to the final, and I think the most important section, the payoff. Because all this hard work, the planning, the storytelling, the clean design, it all comes down to two critical things: driving action and building trust.
Because at the end of the day, that's the whole point, isn't it? The goal isn't just to get someone to nod and say, that's interesting. The goal is to get them to say, okay, I get it. Now I know what we need to do.
And if you want to make sure your insights actually lead to something, you got to make them actionable. It's not enough to just point something out. You need a plan. So just run through this checklist in your head. Who needs to do something? What exactly do they need to do? By when? What did they need to get it done? And how will we know if it worked? See, that turns a fuzzy idea into a real, solid plan.
And finally, none of this matters one bit if people don't trust your data. Trust is the absolute bedrock of all of this. So you have to validate your numbers, you have to show your work by documenting your sources, and you have to be totally upfront about any limitations. And a simple thing like adding a data last updated timestamp, it goes a long way. That kind of transparency is just non-negotiable.
I just love this final quote from Time Tackle. It's so good. It frames data visualization not as some fluffy art project, but as engineering. You're building something. You're building a bridge that helps people get from confusion to understanding. And your job is to make sure that bridge is safe, sturdy, and super easy to cross.
So when you boil it all down, it comes to this. Your data has a story locked inside of it, a story that could totally change the game, solve a huge problem, or lead to a big breakthrough. The only question left is, are you ready to be its storyteller?